Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. Today, we are diving deeper into the final shape. Um, I have nothing bad to say about it. It is the greatest thing to ever happen in the history of anything, and there is so much stuff in it. Yeah, so today we are going to be looking into Micah-10. Um, we've talked about Micah before. Uh, our very first episode that we ever put out there was the Penguins of Europa, and that explains a ton of his life pre-Guardian, as well as pre-collapse. So yeah, we're going to be hitting kind of the high points in there, and then we're going to be going through a lot of the messages that Micah talked to us about throughout the post-campaign missions, specifically the ones that you are going through and finding all the little ghosts, all the ghosts that are lost in the dark, and we're kind of helping bringing them back and getting them healed again. And as we talk about Michael, you'll understand why that we are specifically finding these lost ghosts. We're also going to talk about the Traveler collectibles because there's a lot of really cool text there, a lot of really cool dialogue there that Micah has to say every time we collect one, and it's these really cool theory crafting ideas and stuff, and hitting on really heavy points in Destiny's history and Destiny's lore. So yeah, let's dive in. Myth, where are we starting?
Yeah, so we are going to start at the beginning, as much
A
as we
very good
can.
place to start.
Right, it makes sense. Uh, Now, as stated before, we did already. Our very first episode was that Penguins of Europa. We're not going to be retelling all of that, but we're going to be touching on a couple of those lore cards again, just to kind of build a foundation for anyone that doesn't know who Micah is or where Micah came from, or why they have been important leading up to the final shape where they take a more front and center role, which has been really cool. Uh, so Micah originally, we met through lore cards as the 10-year-old Micah Abram, who was a human child that lived within the Braytech colony of Eventide on Europa. Micah had moved there with their fathers from Mars, the Braytech facility on Mars, moved to Europa in light of the new, for lack of a better term, exo manufacturing facility that was there. Though this is at a state and time where no one knew what exos were, they were still experimental tech. Uh, and that's part of why both of Micah's fathers were there. They worked as part of this facility, specifically with the exos and trying to solve some of the issues that the exo program was having. One of Micah's fathers was known as Dr. Hector Abram, and is in fact I don't know if they ever give him a role, but for lack of a better term, psychologist that was responsible for coming up with the idea of humanisms, of the exos needing to have at least the sensations of organic wants and needs, like the basic wants and needs of life, food, water, like even though they don't need sleep as far as machines go, they should have the sensation of needing sleep. They should have the sensation of needing to eat, of needing to drink. Uh, Otherwise, they'll disassociate.
even
And
even more like base organism feelings too, like your
yeah,
circular system working,
yep,
you breathing, like things that Clovis at the time was like, well, that's just useless programming. If
yep,
it's a machine, it doesn't need that. But the brain, the human brain, is like, I'm not breathing, I'm dead. Full
yeah,
stop.
yeah. This like disassociation of the psyche trapped in this metal body. It is having this to reckon with, like, I'm not in a living body. this is wrong. This is like, and no one, it was just, they were breaking. They were all having psychotic breaks and either becoming violent or suicidal or just comatose in some cases.
Yeah.
And this became known as DER, is the term used for exos that were experiencing this disassociation. And Hector Abram came in and uh, had the idea and implementation of, we need to restore some of these human sensations back to these bodies, even if it's not mechanically relevant, that people need to feel like they're alive.
Just run it as a subroutine, right?
Yeah, I mean, our body kind of already does that for our
that's,
organic selves.
that's what I'm saying. We already run an organic subroutine. Just write it into program code.
But so, needless to say, we can essentially, any of you that are playing as exos, you can thank Micah's father for the fact that your guardian exists in
Yeah,
some weird way.
that'd be me.
Uh, yeah. Um, we learn primarily about Micah's time on Europa via letters. Now, these are all letters that Micah wrote to the Traveler, and that is what the Penguins of Europa book is all of these different letters, and they're written in a very like Dear Santa kind of way.
Yeah.
Uh, Micah's writing these, not understanding if or how to even try and send them to the Traveler, but it's either a coping mechanism or it just, it's an easy way for them to write out their thoughts as they are, having to reckon with moving and being on Europa and new people and new things happening to them. uh we also learn through these letters that Micah had a number of very strange dreams, and that is primarily why Micah started writing letters to the Traveler in the first place, because the Traveler was something of a reoccurring theme or factor in these dreams. And in a lot of cases, those dreams were of what we now know to be future events. Micah had a dream where they were in Exo, like they were in their Exo body in the dream. Uh, and knowing what we know now, I think we can theorize that this was likely the Traveler communicating with Micah as a up and coming speaker type, connection here.
I love that idea. Like it fits so perfectly, and we learn a lot about that again during Final Shape. But we even talked about the idea of the Traveler speaking in one of our other episodes that we did when we covered all the different speakers, the constellations lore
Mm-hmm.
book. So yeah, I love that. It also brings up an interesting idea from the Traveler's point of view. I I think the Traveler doesn't experience time similar to the way the Vex don't experience time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we'll see a little supporting evidence for that as well as we get into some of the like Traveler, the Visions of the Traveler collectibles. But there seems to be an idea here that the Traveler is connected to anything and everything that is made of the light or has a connection to the light, regardless of its place in time.
Yeah.
I
That
and
that idea just kind of like blew my mind. But
Yeah.
again, you think about it, it almost makes sense. Paracausality, effects without cause. Like time itself is creating cause and effect. Like it is a primary reason why cause and effect happens. This cause happened, therefore in so many seconds, minutes, hours, whatever, afterwards the effect has to happen. It has to be on a linear time. Whereas like paracausality, the one doesn't have to relate to the other. You can have an effect without any type of cause, And again, thinking in terms of the way the Vex think and the way the Vex work, as well as again the way I think that the Traveler works, uh, linear time is not a thing. It can experience. It's a network effect, just like the Vex.
Yeah. I think it's very I think it's a good theory that it does experience time similar to the Vex. Again, based on some of the Visions of the Traveler cards, which we will dive into in depth, either likely not this episode, but next. But this episode, we have more information just about Micah in particular, and their history and why, like where they came from. So on their time on Europa as a small child, they state at the beginning of the uh, Penguins of Europa book, which its technical title is Your Friend Micah Abram, um, that they are 10 years old. Unclear how much time they have spent between different letters that have been written. Uh, but what we can confirm is that Micah is taken into the EXO program at age 17. So likely a extensive period of time spent on Europa. Uh, and during that time, they did happen to meet somebody that is also very important to our guardian, to the final shape, to destiny as a whole. And anyone that has finished the kind of post campaign missions from Micah may have heard this already. But Micah has had a run in with Cade before they were the Cade we knew, before they were even Cade 6 in this case. Uh,
Cade 0 or like Cade 1 or
Cade 1.
oh shit.
This is while Micah is still human, is still very much a child. And we're going to read a two lore readings that show the two different sides of this initial interaction between Cade and Micah. Uh, and so the first is going to come to us from that Penguins of Europa book. And this is specifically the chapter titled Letter 5. And it goes like this. Dear Traveler, today was definitely more interesting than it's ever been here in Eventide. At school, we took a trip outside to learn about Europa's climate. That's what our teachers said, anyway. I bet they were just as sick of being stuck inside as we were. While we put our ion shield snowsuits on, the teachers lectured us about staying in sight with a buddy, but of course, when we got outside, everybody went running in a bunch of different directions. That's when I decided that I would learn more useful stuff over at the Exo Factory with Papa and Dad. I didn't break the rules. The factory was in sight. Plus, I had two buddies, the penguins, Mihalova and Calumet. I knew I couldn't go in the front door without a badge, so I went around the side to the loading bay where there were two Exos unloading a bunch of crates. They looked like they were almost done, so I hid under the dock to wait for them to leave. Instead, I heard one of them sit down. I'm taking a break. Need to or not, this is when we used to have lunch. I refuse to work through lunch. And the other one said, Oh, I miss lunch. I miss getting hungry. Then the first one replied with this weird tone. Hmm. So you would say you're hungry for hunger? Which made them laugh for a while. When they finally stopped, the second Exo said, What'd you tell that shrink, by the way? You tell him about the whisper? And that's when I wanted to leave. I didn't like them making fun of my dad. Plus, the way they talked about food and dreams, it made me feel sick. So sick that I guess I made a noise, because then I heard one of them say, What was that? So I ran. and I heard shouts behind me, footsteps catching up, and a bang and a sizzle right over my head. And then two cold, hard claws snatched me up. And that's when I looked straight into its glowing blue eyes. And this continues in letter 6 from Micah, who says, "The Exos caught me quick, and one of them lifted me up so we were eye to eye, and I get why people are scared now. I mean, I was more scared of getting in trouble than anything else, but looking into those eyes was spooky. Almost like being somewhere so dark you can't see your hands in front of your face, though you can feel that they're there. I couldn't look away, even as I heard the other one asking what they should do with me, if it'd be easier if I just went missing. But then all of a sudden its eyes went dark, and I fell to the ground. A second later it collapsed in a sparking metal heap next to me. I must have started running. So the next thing I remember was coming back to the empty classroom, holding Mihalova and Calumet and looking at the penguins that got left behind, some of them just lying on the floor. For some reason that made me mad. Maybe I'm too old for plushies, but at least I take care of mine. So I picked out the ones that looked lonely, and I ran home across the building to hide under my bed. Hide them under my bed. Then I went back outside to find my class, and just as the teachers were counting everyone up, so no one had even noticed I was gone. Which means they don't know that I'm the one that took the penguins either. So now I have 9 penguins. Mihalova, Calumet, Hardy, Quail, Clovis, Willa, Alton, Elsie, and Anna. Signed, your friend, Micah. So that's the end of Micah's letters.
It's so weird that she named 5 of them after the Clovis
I
family.
mean,
It's
to
fitting, but
yeah, I mean, to a little kid, like, again, the Bray family is probably been names that have been around, considering that
oh
their
sure,
parents work there, and like it
like
I'm
these
guessing.
are the greatest minds of her time.
Right, exactly.
You're talking somebody who invented Siva. You're talking somebody is working very closely with Rasputin. You're talking I guess Alton's probably like the low end of the totem pole on this one. Clovis, like the great exo creator, like albeit a psychopath. Uh, Elsie with, I mean, she was doing a lot of stuff with both jump ship and speeder technology. So I mean,
Yep,
again, some of the greatest minds of the uh, of the golden age are. I mean, why wouldn't she look up to him?
exactly. Uh, so this is, Micah has kind of peeled off from the rest of the class, is trying to go to where their dads work,
Yeah,
uh, and comes across these exos, and like just something about the conversation doesn't sit right with her, and she tries to leave, is caught, and hears this conversation about like, well, what do we do with the kid? Should they just go missing? Which is dark.
yeah. No,
um,
that it takes a quick turn, but then like, what happens to this exo? Like,
Yeah, eyes go black. They fall in this sparking heap,
it's like
and
it just
Micah fucking
instantly
books it.
shuts down.
So now we get to see the other side of this interaction. I through the lore card that is on the Deepstone Crypt helmet, the Legacy's Oath helm, the Titan helmet specifically. I and this one goes like this. High above the last city, tucked in one of the tower's many alcoves, Cade 6 thumbs through an old book, plucked from the speaker's library. It's become delicate with age, or so he assumes, taking extra care turning each page. His sense of touch is good. There's certainly enough circuitry in his metal fingers to pull off the most precise of shots, but even a hair trigger touch might rip brittle paper. Cade pauses on a page. If sailor tales and sailor tunes, storm and adventure, heat and cold. And suddenly a gust of surprisingly icy wind nearly rips the book from his hands. Ah, to hell with this godforsaken ice cube, he shouts, almost falling from his perch. He steadies himself and inhales deeply. Hang on there, Cade. You're not on any ice cube, godforsaken or otherwise. You're on Earth, in the last city. But the memory lingers, like the floating neon outlines seconds after a blinding camera flash. The snow-white plains of a distant moon, a sarcophagus of ice and iron. Yes, that's what Europa feels like to Cade-1, as he loads crate after crate onto the bay outside the Exoscience factory. Even the sky has turned a flat gray, casting all beneath it in a dull, deadening light. A warning sky, he thinks. Sailors had some kind of rhyme for it, didn't they? Either way, it hardly makes for a motivating work environment. Cade sits on one of the crates. I'm taking a break, he announces. Need to or not, this is when we used to have lunch, and I refuse to work through lunch. Next to him, Knox 4 sighs with relief and longing. I miss lunch. I miss getting hungry. Cade grins as much as his mechanical face will allow. He intones his best Dr. Abrams impression. So, would you say you're hungry for hunger? Knox bursts into guffaws. Cade chuckles weakly. It wasn't that funny. But as his friend's laughter grows, so does Cade's, and soon they're both clutching each other, howling. Then gradually, their cheer fades. What'd you tell that shrink, by the way? Knox asks. You tell him about the whisper? Cade shakes his head. Before he can snark about the uselessness of psychologists, the whisper rings in his metal skull. It's red sky and morning, sailor's warning. But you're no sailor, he thinks. A whimper squeaks out from the loading bay, and a moment later, a short, snow-suited figure scrambles out, racing for the far end of the factory. Cade and Knox shout, taking off after the eavesdropper. No sharpshooter yet. Cade fumbles for his Braytech-issued handgun, aims shakily, and Cade 6 comes back to himself, just as he stumbles into his hideout. He rifles through the piles of loot until, aha! He finds a pen. Cade 6 isn't done yet. He flips open the book, no longer being careful with the pages, and starts scrawling in the text. Spend some time with an exo who's been through it like we have, and you'll see all the tells, he begins to write. And that's the end of that card.
I mean, clearly the same interactions happening here. It's word for word conversation.
Yeah.
Did
So,
Cade shoot the other XO?
well, that's kind of up for interpretation. I think we can say for sure it sounds like Cade shot at Micah.
Yeah.
Micah describing this feeling of like a hot bolt go across above their head, and Cade just seeing something move and instinctually firing.
I think he shot his buddy. I think he shot his loading bay buddy.
I mean, if knowing what we know about Cade, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that he, given the like, hey, did we just kill this kid?
Yeah, that's dark. Cade, I don't think Cade would put up
I don't
with
think
that.
he'd put up with it. Yeah. And
But on the flip
collapsing in a.
side,
Mhm.
doing loading base sucks alone. I mean,
Yeah, but they don't get
you just
tired.
but you just doubled your workload. That's some bullshit.
Uh,
I guess you just go like it's a reset, right? Like you just like, oh shit,
right, yeah.
this I found this exo with a bullet sized hole in him. Weird. Can we get a reset, please?
Yeah.
I feel like that's where you go to HR with that. Like you just bring like I don't know. I just found him. He had a bullet hole in him, and they're like, your bullet count is down by one. Like I don't know. Weird.
Now, what's interesting about this is that Nox 4 does show up again.
Really?
Yeah, specifically Nox 4 is referenced as well, I guess I shouldn't say that. We find the body of Nox 4 as part of the Lament storyline.
Oh shit! So he didn't, and it's a Knox 4. It's not a Knox 5 or 6 or 7.
Right, it specifically says
Cade
Nox
left his
4.
lone buddy, shot him, and left him out in the damn snow. Get the hell out of here! I mean, I'm not mad at him, but like,
Yeah. I
shit.
mean, I'll let you draw your own conclusions there because there isn't a whole lot
He shot
that
his.
says
I mean,
one way
there's
or the
not much
other.
to say. He shot his lone buddy. He did not go to HR. He just accepted it and was like, "Oh well, I guess I got to do twice the work now." But at least that kid's safe.
Now I will say, and let me double check. I think Nox 4 is actually one of the exos that is around to help Elsie close the portal.
Holy shit!
Yeah, Nox 4 is one of them that is there. So, but again, Elsie's timeline is different than
Janky.
ours. Yeah. So, that's a different iteration of Nox.
Sure.
But regardless, as this pertains to Micah, Micah did have a run-in with Cade, a nearly fatal one. But
But also, I mean, the flip side of that, like, Cade's the reason Micah exists.
yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that Cade probably did something to disable Nox to allow Micah to escape. Like I don't see Cade being that cold-hearted to be like, all right, let's off the kid because it's a security risk or something. Like
Yeah,
I don't see that happening.
I agree.
Uh, so,
I still think it's
um,
messed up. He didn't even like try to go to HR and be like, "Hey, my buddy's got a bullet-sized hole in him. Can you fix him?" I guess that would bring up
eh,
a shit ton of questions, and then
yeah, be
HR's
like, well,
that's when
how did
HR's
that
like,
happen?
and you're just like, I don't know, and then they're like, well, your bullet count is down by one. Like, did you shoot a bullet? Like, no, I didn't. Well, your gun says you did. Like, I don't know, weird. I shot at something. Maybe I accidentally shot him. I don't know. Then it brings up questioning, and then you got to fill out more paperwork. Kate hates paperwork.
He
There's
really
no
does.
way.
He
There
really
is no
does.
way. I mean, Cade 6 hates paperwork. There's no way Cade 1 went to HR and started filling out paperwork about his buddy. Like, nope.
Yeah.
Cade 1 came off shift, went on shift as a duo, came off shift as a solo, and didn't raise a single question or anything. Just everyone just accepted it. It was like, nah, dead EXO in the snow.
So, uh, we're gonna touch very briefly on Dr. Hector here, Hector Abram, I who was Micah's one of Micah's fathers. Again, was that psychologist that the exes were even talking. What'd you say to the shrink, kind of thing. I Because Dr. Hector has been operating under the assumption that what he is doing is assisting these people that are becoming exos for whatever reasons they are becoming exos. Um, and he is not clued in on the depth of Clovis's depravity at this point. I
I don't think
until
anybody is.
I wouldn't say
Maybe Elsie.
anybody
Elsie is.
isn't. I think there are some people that know Clovis is not one to stop at anything to get results.
Yeah.
Um, but there is a particular moment that is the I think the catalyst for him resigning from Braytech. And we can see that in the Icefall Mantle exotics lore card, the Titan exotic. And this also brings up we have mentioned before In our Clovis series, when Clovis is creating the exos and doing experiments with Alcahest, as he calls it, um, and the like, there were a couple times where the exos were able to induce ice on themselves. The one that like shot an ice beam and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
Clovis is very interested in that capability, which I think we can safely say now is
I believe that. The fact the fact that he was using clarity, which is I mean, we know a lot more about that, which we can
yeah.
go on for hours about that, is a source of darkness. Like, and the fact that he's using that to make the exo goo, that alkahest, work,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
that to me inherently says that exos, just an exo body, whether it be a guardian or not, has inherent darkness abilities.
Yes. Whether they know how to tap into them or not. And Clovis was attempting to learn how to tap into that and control it. And one of those experiments is here in the Icefall Mantle. And it goes like this. The message was flagged urgent, top priority, and hosts 7 distinct typos. Unusual for such a cautious, thoughtful man. He believes this is an emergency, but surely no reason to panic, despite the vehemence of his message. No reason to ruffle others' feathers or reveal his anger and fear. There will be a rational exchange, he reasons. This is all just a misunderstanding. He refuses to break into a run as he hurries down the deserted hallways leading to the test unit C-21. Holographic alarms silently flash over and over. Danger. Authorized personnel only. Danger. Authorized personnel only. Danger. He makes a comms call that goes through clearly, but it's broken by scattered thoughts and shortness of breath, and the call goes unanswered. Dr. Hector Abram then blasts into the observation theater, towering with frustrated rage. But the workstations there sit empty. The theater is dark. No audience for his planned tirade presents itself. He turns instead to the stage beyond the transparent shielding and feels himself grow smaller with the enormity of the drama unfolding before him. The apparatus of the lab holds a test subject in a harness. No velvet glove, no rare metals woven around a form of singular complexity. Oh, just rare metals woven around a form of similar complexity. The exo's body dangles and twitches, the puppeteer's presence sensed but unseen. The foreign energy courses again down through the cords, the third surge and the strongest yet, making the puppet quiver and dance. And Dr. Abram raises a hand to his mouth, which seems to climb to his eyes of its own accord. And through splayed fingers, he witnesses the triumph of the puppeteer as ice takes shape around the puppet like magic. You see now why this was necessary. Dr. Abram jumps and turns at Clovis Bray's words. He had not seen him sitting comfortably in the darkness at the back of the room. And that's the end of that lore card.
Dude, that's not freaky as shit. I don't know what you're talking about.
So,
That would scare the shit out of anyone.
yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a time where like science is everything, right? Like the paracausality doesn't, like, even the concept of paracausality doesn't exist. So like you're talking a time where like literally science truly is everything, and to see like ice like forming on this thing and it talking and like, is that so? Oh man, is that darkness talking? That's got to be what, really? I'm sorry, I just completely broke my entire train of thought in a single sentence. Is 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 the is the exo that's dangling there? talk, the thing that is using it to talk and I'm going to say showcase stasis, is that a is that like a witness? Is that the witness? Is that a voice in the dark? Is that what is doing that?
So the exo is not spoken. It's
Okay.
Clovis that speaks, kind of
Oh, okay, okay,
revealing
okay.
himself, hidden away in the shadows of this empty room, watching this happen.
Gotcha.
I what I'm taking this is an exo body that they're like pumping alkahest or clarity into to induce stasis forming.
Gotcha.
And it's it's another experiment from Clovis on like how can we control this, what causes this, how can I likely weaponize this.
Yeah.
Is I imagine where Clovis's mind is at.
Okay.
And I Abrams, who is already very angry about something, I'm guessing that he is storming to make a scene in light of the next lore card we're going to read, which was his resignation letter, uh, and comes into a empty place, this horrific experiment on display, like in this like I see this like a hospital observation area,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With like that
I
upper deck area.
Yep,
Yep.
and he's looking down at this terrible thing that is happening to one of these exos, and Clovis, his boss, kind of materializing out of the dark and being like, see, do you see why everything I'm doing is necessary? Look at this power that we have found. uh, is my read on it, at least.
Crazy.
So not 100% necessary, but because it's fun and because it doesn't necessarily fit anywhere else per se, and also informs us as to the character of Hector, one of Micah's parents. I We're gonna go over the lore card of the last flight home ship, which is essentially just Hector's resignation letter. Um,
Oh,
but
do we get some more FU Clovis?
he goes in on it.
Oh, let's go. I love when a character. I mean, when Maya tore into him, I was like, let's go.
Yeah. So, this lore card goes like this, and it is formatted like an email, and it starts, "To whom it may concern. In light of recent events, please accept this letter of resignation effective immediately. I was led to believe that the top minds would be assembled in a collective effort to cure Redacted. That was a lie. I am requesting safe passage to Earth and to be removed from the Redacted. Redacted has demonstrated he is incapable of empathy and will travel to the furthest reaches of our solar system to avoid legal ramification to pursue his twisted vision. I quickly discovered his endeavor was less of a colony and more of a cult. You are either with him or against him. I was once his closest confidant, and now I hardly recognize him. His experiments have become deranged and torturous, all while he maintains the calm lucidity of a sociopath. It is my opinion that his research and assets be frozen, so he can be retrieved and dealt a swift, unflinching justice. He is compromised and is being manipulated. To describe what I have witnessed would be a gratuitous exercise in horror, but I fear without clear circumstantial accounts there will be no action. On one case, he recklessly and viciously cost a young man, redacted, the loss of his motor skills and eventually his life. The notion of downloading a human consciousness for preservation is not new, but an effective and non lethal means of doing so has not yet been presented. After months of trials with brain scans that proved they were not comprehensive enough to provide more than a memory bank, Redacted's obsession grew. He wanted the bank to achieve Redacted and Redacted. He was seeking the Redacted. It rapidly became clear that his intentions were dubious. Redacted brain was scanned beyond legal standards, and his exposure to radiation incited the accelerated growth of a tumor that impaired his cognitive function. He was moribund and should have been released from this experiment. Redacted insisted this was a small hurdle. and Redacted had been our most lucrative candidate, so all efforts went towards the removal of his tumor. That was when I was made aware of the milky redacted substance. He was farming the redacted that passed through the redacted. He constructed under mysterious guidance for their redacted. I suspect he intends to redacted, so he can close the redacted and redacted. His convert, his
You're
converts to
you're
redacted.
killing me, myth.
I can't help it. It's very much a like this email went through the like okay we can't the top secret pen came out and
I mean,
started
like I'm
squaring
following
stuff
some of
off.
these words, and I'm we're gonna have to read this a second time with the
Yeah.
correct words in there.
Uh. So
Continue.
so
Sorry.
to touch on generally what he's saying here, this is Abrams talking about. I have seen experiments done with people that are, we've told them we're going to cure, their cancer or whatever, and instead they're being used as guinea pigs, and it's making it worse instead.
Yep.
Uh, I think he's talking here about the portal. Like I've
Yep.
discovered that the Milky White, I think redacted being Vex substance. He's
Radiolaria
farm
is what I would think.
radiolaria. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
He's farming the radiolaria that passed through the portal that he constructed under mysterious guidance for. And I'm thinking he's referring here to like this statue because Clovis is constructed the portal under guidance of the K1
From the
anomaly,
K1 anomaly. Yep.
which is in Deepstone Crypt at this time. And he's saying like I suspect he intends to. Now this one I'm not sure. I suspect he intends to redacted so he can close the redacted and redacted. That could be anything.
It's so vague, like, but that's the worst part with it. Again, I've seen military files like this all the time, and it's literally just black lines through all sorts of like you can read it sort of, but like you're never gonna truly know what is being said
Right.
there.
But so the letter does continue, speaking to Clovis starting treatment on himself, I believe is what's being referred to here.
Sure.
Because Abrams then says, we started with injections in moderate doses under heavy surveillance. Remarkably, not on himself, but on this cancer patient. Remarkably, the tumor began to recede and some functions were restored. He was prescribed more injections. Suddenly, he was being force fed leaders in hopes of reversing all the damage he had suffered. At first, we believed we'd stumbled upon a cure all miracle, but soon the ramifications of our unnatural meddling reared their ugly heads. His body chemistry changed. He was overrun with new elements foreign to our periodic table. He was becoming I think redacted here is machine. Uh, the mutilation he endured as redacted replaced redacted and redacted.
I think
This
that like obviously they're injecting it with radiolaria,
Yes, I think this is
and
Clovis's early experiments of like if I just give someone radiolaria, what happens?
and
Uh,
we've seen what that does to anyone. I mean, we saw what happened. We Asher Mir, Kabir, and possibly Prated. No, just Kabir. Kabir was the one that was surviving on it.
yep,
But
yep,
yeah, it literally like the radiolaria, because it is an organism. It is what the Vex are made of. Will start to overwrite parts of your bodies, and so like I like the as fucked up as this is, I like the positive part of the beginning where like the radiolaria sees the tumor as a bad thing, so it just starts to replace it and rewrite it, and it's like, oh, neat, the tumor's going away. Radiolaria solves tumor. Well, I mean, solve is a strong word at this point. Um, is overriding it into a different thing is the more correct term, but yes, technically the tumor is gone. Uh, but then again, the more they feed it to him, the more they pump into this body, this human, this alive person. Now he starts like the radiolaria starts taking over, and it does the very base function of a Vex is make everything Vex
yeah,
exist, full stop. And so parts of his body start turning into metal and turning into a Vex.
yeah. So continues. This was beyond the ethical code of conduct and against the moral fibers that bind us. He grew strong, violent, and incomprehensible. He was a threat to us all and was terminated after an attack where 2 colleagues fell victim to an outburst. This is one case of hundreds. Past dictators have committed atrocities that pale in comparison, and this was never anything more than a quest for his own ego and immortality. I fear this is only the beginning. It is a tame display compared to what, redacted I think being Clovis, what Clovis is capable of. It is paramount that you act quickly and decisively. These experiments will lead to large-scale ruin far beyond Europa. The price is too high. Signed, Dr. Hector Abram.
Oh, I was really hoping for a good fu Clovis. I mean,
None.
it not
Yeah.
not I you know me, I like the direct approach.
Yeah, no, what's interesting is this letter isn't being written, I don't think, to Clovis. I think it's being written to like perhaps a board
I think so
or
too.
some kind of like overarching structure. Because he's
Yep,
essentially asking for Clovis to be like
like his removal.
removed
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
convicted of a crime.
Yep, yep. This is straight. And it's odd to think like on the one hand I'm like this is war crime, but like there's no wartime. So like is it really? I mean it is a war crime, but it is not during a wartime. So I mean
It's
it's
just a
bad.
sociopath.
It is. That's all it is. That's all it is.
But so regardless, I know this isn't Micah doing any of this, but this is the person, this is one of the people Micah has spent their whole life around and has been raised by this idea of uh very strong conviction of like we should be working to help people and we should be
Yeah,
working for the greater good. And I thought I was doing that, and I've discovered I'm not. And they take the action probably knowing that Clovis would have the want to retaliate of like, no, someone should say something.
sure.
I
I mean that's the biggest thing. Like it if something seems bad, looks bad, it probably is bad. You know that whole like looks like a duck, smells like a duck, must be a duck.
yeah.
Yeah, if it looks bad and seems bad, it probably is bad. And speaking up is better than not.
So presumably a little fuzzy on the exact order of operations, but presumably uh Dr. Hector, submitted this resignation um either either immediately before or after he saw the experiment that was happening and that Clovis was present for. uh One of those things led to him wanting to just leave outright. And we see a little bit of that conversation in letter 8 of Micah's letters in the Your Friend Micah Abram book. And we see this argument and some interesting information here. So letter 8 goes like this. I woke up from my jumping dream to hear Papa yelling, "You're so selfish," and then Dad telling him to keep his voice down. But even whispering, I could still hear Dad say he wasn't selfish, that the project was just too dangerous. Not to mention useless. If Clovis wants stable, functioning soldiers, he shouldn't put them through trauma in the first place. Papa said that the point wasn't to avoid trauma, but to prepare for it, and that we should be able to protect ourselves without relying on you, traveler. That something more powerful could come along, or that you could turn on us, which made me feel sick to my stomach again. Papa's always told me about how much you've given us, how we should return the favor by learning and exploring and stretching the golden age for thousands of more years. But now, he was saying, skip the ethics lecture and tell me, if you knew humanity could be wiped out in the next 50 years, wouldn't you try anything and everything to save us? To save our child? It got quiet then. For so long that I almost went back to bed. I heard Papa again. This DER stuff is hard, but I think the humanisms you suggested are the solution. In fact, I'll bet my life on it. Dad said that's what he was worried about. I love you, but forget about being safe in 50 years. Micah needs to be safe here and now. He said some of the colonists were going home with the next supply ship, and he hoped Papa would join us. I got back into bed and piled all my penguins on my head to block out the noise. Didn't really work. What's going to happen? And that's the end of that letter.
I mean, that's. Oh God, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. Okay. Yeah, no, that's that's
So
life.
yes. This does bring a couple questions to me though. Um, it's a very interesting, maybe arbitrary, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But it's a very interesting idea that this person that has been, to Micah at least, very like, praising of the traveler, or at least saying like we need to use its gifts and try to make things better. Like we need to return the favor it gave us by making everyone's lives better, is now taking the approach of, if the world ends in 50 years, wouldn't you want to be prepared for it? And that very quick switch, and the specificity of like, if the world ends in 50 years,
Somebody knows
I'm
something.
I wonder if the K1 has been whispering to Clovis that, like, again, the K1 has not, as we know, can't communicate in the like, hey, big bad witness is coming, you need to build weapons, but is whispering and influencing Clovis's thinking to be like, build weapons, build soldiers, the end is coming, something bad is on the horizon and it's almost here. And if that idea got so ingrained in Clovis's already egotistical brain, and maybe some of that has become a driving force for why he's pushing these limits.
It's got to be, because then he can if it works, and he does push back whatever's coming back, he can go, look, I saved humanity.
Yeah.
That just
Yeah.
feeds his egotism tenfold. Like that. Yeah, no, I'm gonna agree with that. Again, knowing what we know about the veiled statues, like we talked about this in our last episode, the statues themselves are still a part of the witness that has been like sectioned off and imprisoned essentially, and their consciousness is still there. That's why we still hear the whispers. And depending on how sectioned off or cut off they are, at least to me, seems to determine how much of their whispers we can actually hear and interpret. Um, so yeah, the fact that that K1 anomaly is exactly that, it is a veiled statue, therefore is part of the witness. Um, which I guess we really never touched on that last episode to like really kind of drive that home. Any veiled statue we've ever come across in the history of Destiny is one of the consciousnesses inside the witness.
Yeah, that was exiled as something that, as someone that did not agree with the witness's overall goals.
Yep. And so they were sectioned off, imprisoned, and so again, but once they were sectioned off and imprisoned, every single one of those things has been whispering. And I mean, we saw it in the campaign for Final Shape, where Crow is like, listen, like, and then Glint like interrupts him, is like, no, you can't listen to that thing, it's evil. And then Zavala is like, this thing is talking to me, this thing is trying to tell me something. And Ikora is like, no, it's a trick from the witness. And like when they actually did finally listen, the statues were actively telling us how to defeat it. Like, and so I have to believe that that has been happening this whole time, all the way back to the Golden Age and the K1 anomaly. And so for that to be that far back in our history, again, now this is pre-collapse, like the witness was already coming here once, to chase the traveler and shut it down type thing, or kill it or do whatever, do the pale heart thing back then. Um, yeah, no, it makes sense to me that the K1 statue would have intricate knowledge of when and where the end of the world is, the end of humanity, and the end of the soul system is happening. So yeah, I think you're right. I think these statues really are or I think Clovis is being whispered and being told exactly, hey, you have X amount of years. Like, get done now or die.
Yeah. And that, taking someone that's already as twisted as Clovis was, and like now giving that almost subliminal messaging of, build an army, make weapons, get power. That's just gonna ramp him up to 11.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
but I do wonder if that idea is now starting to permeate through the people that are working most closely with him, of like
I mean, a
just
secret can
this.
only be held so long.
Right. And just this sense, like, why would he believe the world's going to end in 50 years
Yeah.
unless either he got the same subliminal kind of whispering going on, or
Because
just
that's the
being
other thing.
around Clovis, or I don't know, but
Like, that's the other thing, too. You mentioned there, like, the same subliminal whispering. Like, the statue doesn't just whisper to Clovis,
right,
it
it's
just whispers.
anybody it can.
Anybody that can, like, sit there and concentrate and listen to it long enough will just sit there and hear it. So yeah, like, maybe because this is the person that said, like, forsake the traveler, we got 50 years, that's Micah's other dad, right? That's not Hector.
Uh
Or was that Hector that said that?
un Unclear for sure.
Okay.
It I'm assuming that that is his other dad.
Okay.
um
And that's what I was thinking too, because I think, like, I obviously Hector would have a higher level of clearance throughout the base just naturally since he's working very closely with the Exos. But, like, I don't know. I still come back to the idea of, like, you can only hold a secret for so long, especially in a
yeah.
facility like that that is so sectioned off from the rest of humanity, from the rest of the universe. Like, there are only so many people in there, and people love gossip. Um, and I'm coming from a military thing. I'm telling you right now, we gossip the snot out of shit. We ain't got nothing to do, but especially if we're on a loading bay, loading pallets, and we're just like, let's shoot the shit. Oh, did you hear about so and so? No, what about so and so? Yeah, no, that's yeah. I think you're right. I think that either the statue was talking directly to one of them, or word got out that the statue is like, hey, something bad is coming, and you are all going to die. You like make your time.
Yeah, which this is stepping away from Micah in particular for a moment, but just had the thought that this kind of explains, possibly is a possible explanation for the exo dream, and the, the, what Cade called the long slow whisper, which I think is what they refer to as the dream where the exos are constantly like in this fight,
Yeah,
and they can see other exos around them and like people they know, and they're fighting through just this endless battle. I wonder if, because being an exo means you have clarity in you, you have dark energy in you, if some of the latent, like, messages and worries of the K1 statue that provided that darkness are leaked into all the exos, and have, is the reason for them having this recurring, like, prepare to fight, prepare to fight, prepare to fight
I think you're
dream.
right. Isn't part of that dream also a tower?
Yeah, they're always like fighting to get to a tower.
The monolith in the Pale Heart,
Maybe so. Maybe so. Yeah.
dude. Okay, that's a oh shit moment. Okay,
It's
yeah,
kind of
no,
wild. Yeah.
I'm thinking that's a thing then. Okay, all right.
But from Micah's perspective, they're hearing kind of, parents argue on the other side of the wall, and is coming to the realization that uh, one of Micah's fathers intends to leave Europa with Micah in tow, whether, his other father is going to come or not.
Yep,
Uh, and that's a lot to process,
that is.
especially for, yeah, may again, we don't know the age here, we're not sure the gaps in time between these letters, but we know Micah is somewhere between 10 and 17, and like, it's traumatic for anybody, but especially for somebody in that age range.
Absolutely.
So but we move on to the next and, what is final letter in the Micah lore book, the Penguin lore book, where Micah has made a decision. And in that letter, which is letter number 9, Micah says, Dear traveler, this will be my last message to you. Maybe you won't see any of these anyway. Even if I knew how to now, I'm not sure how to send them. I'm not sure about a lot right now. The next day was pretty normal. Papa made breakfast, walked me to school, which he's never done before. He was worried that I heard their fight, maybe because he said he was sorry for working so much. Then he asked if I liked it here. I didn't really know what to say, so I said yes, but I missed Mars. I think that still made him sad because he said he was sorry again and that he'd spend less time at work. Dad's been working even more. At first, I thought that meant he'd changed his mind about leaving, but now I haven't seen him for a whole week, and my stomach won't stop hurting. What has stopped is the dream. 2 nights ago, I finally broke away from Europa's gravity in my dream and floated up to the traveler and heard a whisper. And it said, Are you sure you know what you think you know? And I woke up before I got close to you. And last night I didn't dream at all, which means I must have figured out the message, but all I have are these words stuck in my head. Are you sure what you think? Are you sure you know what you think you know? This morning, Papa told me Dad's been sleeping at the factory because he's so busy, but soon he'll get a break, and we'll spend the whole day together as a family. I'm not sure, but I think he's lying. Tomorrow, the supply ship leaves for Mars, and I want to go. So I've packed my bag, and once Papa goes to sleep, I'm going to put on my snowsuit and go out and find Dad. I don't care if I run into a whole army of exos. Maybe I'll take Mihalova out of my bag and carry her for support. It's probably dumb, but I don't really know what else to do. Goodbye. Signed, Micah.
Dude, that's sad. I'm why we got to do sad episodes, man?
No one has a happy history in Destiny.
You're not fucking wrong.
All the Guardians died once.
I know. That's the like Jesus, Myth. These are sad. These are sad reading. I don't want to do sad readings, Myth. All
So
right,
what
that's
we
that's the end of the series. End of the
Yeah,
episode. We're
that's
not doing
it.
any
That's
more
it.
reading. No. Yeah, no. So I mean, Mike. So a couple things here. Like obviously, Micah makes it into the EXO program and becomes an EXO.
Yep.
So like, either Micah didn't leave Mars or Micah died in the snow, and at some point in time, their brain had already been scanned and possibly his dad got sad. The other dad is dead. I'm just telling you, somebody got executed. Full stop. That's all there is to it. Like you don't see somebody for weeks on end, and they're in a facility of military might. Somebody's been executed. That's all there is to it. Um,
So, and unfortunately, we don't have anything to fill in the gap between that last entry and Micah being a guardian.
really, that's
So
it.
somewhere between Micah going out on their own in the dead of night to infiltrate the Clovis facility to find their father, and Micah-10 being a guardian in the hills of old Russia, somewhere between that, Micah was captured, question mark, turned into an exo, and reset at least 9 times before
That's still
dying and then becoming a guardian.
yeah. Like that's a long ass time.
There is a lot of gap to fill there.
WTF, bro?
And I do hope that we will eventually learn some more about what did happen in that space. But for the time being,
I mean, at the end of the day, an EXO's an EXO. Like it, they may not even know of that time.
this is true. because all those resets would have wiped the memory. They might have fragments, but
Sure.
that's it.
Well, not just wipe the memory. We know that when Clovis does a reset on an EXO, he can pick and choose what memories to put in
Right.
there, what not. Like he did that with
Exactly.
Elsie. So
Hmm.
yeah, like yeah, that information could be gone forever.
So the next time we see Micah is sometime is on Earth, interestingly enough. So not on Europa, but on Earth is where Micah was resurrected. Uh, and Micah is resurrected. Timeline's a little fuzzy, but it's either very early City Age or Dark Age is
Sure.
when Micah was first resurrected. I and Micah began to wander, led by dreams of Deepstone Crypt, but without any idea of where this place was. Just knowing that there was a pull to go there. And so we're going to read the Legacy's Oath Greaves, which are the Titan Deepstone Crypt boots. And they go like this. Micah-10 roams the rolling hills of old Russia, as she has done for many years now, as she may do for many years more. A pack of ghosts trails behind her, their little blue eyes blinking over the landscape. Micah has helped many a ghost in their search. It's much easier to find a guardian while someone else looks out for fallen scavengers. Though she privately wishes they would help her for once. How hard can it be to find a functioning ship? Very hard, when you need said ship to make it far out of the atmosphere, even possibly all the way to the Jovians. Because while her little companions seek out their futures, Micah has her own glowing eyes set firmly on the past, on the deep stone crypt. She once thought it was hidden on Earth, buried underneath the snow drifts of Siberia, but now she suspects it's further out, in a much darker, lonelier place. Somewhere very cold, that she knows for certain. She's dreamt of it thousands of times, fought thousands of battles on the golden field beneath the black tower. And every 50th instance in the midst of the chaos, an older man puts a paternal hand on her shoulder and says, "You just need to get acclimated. It's colder here than on Mars." And every 100th time she makes it into the tower and finds a different man sitting in an armchair, writing on a notepad, who says, "Dreams are just messages from deep inside your mind. Until you figure out the message, the dream will repeat." And every single time, no matter who she sees or what she hears, Micah-10 wakes up, feeling something in her tug towards space. She tells herself some internal magnet must have gotten knocked loose, and then curses the ones who made her. In humans, bodily sensation is a form of communication, the connection between the mental and the physical. But in exos, it's all a lie. Cold, heat, hunger, exhaustion, pain. The signals aren't connected to any real lack or breakage. For the most part, her body is impervious. On the rare occasion she does break, she wouldn't even know it unless someone else were to tell her. So, in that sense, the ghosts do help from time to time. That's the end of that card.
So I don't know why I'd never really put two and two together here. Darkness is consciousness,
Yes.
power over consciousness, or paracausal power involving consciousness. I mean, that's the whole reason exos work. Is they've give
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. They've pumped a body full of consciousness and a bunch of microorganisms that are like able to carry that consciousness throughout the entire vessel. that they're in.
Yeah. And Radiolaria just carries like instructions. Like it's in, it's a form of mechanical DNA in a lot of ways.
Right.
So, tie a carrier to a paracausal consciousness, and
And you
you
have
have
paracausal AM radio.
kind of, yeah.
You like that? And when you said carrier, I instantly thought, oh shit, it's just frequencies. You got a carrier frequency, and you got your information being carried on that frequency. You got an
Yep.
AM radio right there. I mean, hell, at this point, it's obviously way past AM. Like we're past FM. We're definitely quad phase modulating, but it's whatever. It's fine. Just a phase of
Yes.
modulation. That's all it is. Sending and receiving signals, decoding and decoding signals.
So Micah is on Earth in the Cosmodrome, has this just pack of ghosts that have started to, seek her out and wander around her and with her, and she helps them find their guardians in some cases because they have a protector. Uh,
Well,
and
we've never really
she,
talked about why they follow her.
uh, I don't know that there's ever a true explanation given. I
I
is
personally think now again this is kind of skipping ahead in our storytelling here,
Yeah.
but I personally think because Micah's close connection to the traveler, those ghosts feel that close connection. I mean, thinking back to what Kate said, right? Like us, the guardians, the traveler, we're all connected. Our ghost, everyone's connected in the light, and so like I truly think, and again, knowing that the traveler likes to speak through dreams, and in a younger Micah spoke to Micah in dreams. And then again, when the dreaming stopped, I'm curious if that's like when the collapse happened. Like, was that like was the collapse happening? Excuse me. While the was the collapse happening while Micah was writing these letters, and then like that last letter was, you know, Traveler has stopped communicating because it can't communicate because the witness is here, darkness is here. It's shutting down all communications lines. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
like the fact that the traveler and we know that all of the speakers, again referencing back to the constellation ones,
Mm-hmm.
that they could interpret these dreams, or the traveler had that close connection with these beings. um, and then thinking forward now, again this is a bunch of time skipping, but we're getting information at different points in time. Thinking forward to the campaign itself of Final Shape, where it might have been Crow, or maybe it was Micah that talked about how like certain people are just more attuned to it.
Yep.
Like we through the campaign we see Ikora, she tries to like meditate, and she's like, if I meditate hard enough, if I close my eyes and open my heart and mind, I can talk to the traveler. And she says all I hear is screaming. um I definitely think that that's a quality there of a speaker. And so like, but I think the open communication there has to be more natural. It can't just be like I'll focus hard enough, I'll try harder, and I can speak to the traveler. I
Mm-hmm.
do think that there's some natural affinity to it. And so for Micah to have had that natural affinity back when Micah was a kid, um, again, when a guardian gets rezzed, like certain traits just carry through. And I think that is one of those traits that got carried through to Micah-10. Like Micah-10 can talk with the traveler, and these ghosts can sense that. And so, like, that's to me, that's why all these little ghosts are following her around all the time.
Well, and if you remember in the Constellations book, when the last speaker, the speaker in the last city, was trying to find a successor, the things that he was looking for were people that were having strange dreams, people that just inexplicably had ghosts attracted to them.
Yep.
Like those were both telltale things for like this might be the successor to me as speaker. And the speaker themselves had a bunch of unpaired ghosts that just hung around them all the
Yep.
time in the tower in D1. Uh, so I think that is very much indicators that like this is someone with a connection to the traveler. And I think the ghosts probably wouldn't even be able to explain why they're drawn to that person themselves.
Sure.
It's just a magnetism. It's
Yeah.
just a
It's just
like,
an innate,
yeah.
like, again, we're like what Kate said, everyone's connected in the light. And so the stronger the connection, it's like what you said, like magnetism. The stronger the attraction that's going to be there, the more it's going to pull. So yeah, I not to like again jump ahead in thoughts, but Micah-10 next speaker option.
I think so.
I
Yes.
I definitively
Uh,
think so.
Now
There's no
I
doubt in my
don't.
mind that
Yeah.
if we were to name a new speaker, it's either Micah-10 or Crow, and Crow has accepted Hunter Vanguard, so we're only left with one person.
Now, what I don't think is going to happen is I don't think Micah is interested in the role of speaker as a religious or political figure.
Correct. I am
I,
on the same page as you.
yeah.
I think Micah just wants to be able to share what she is being shown or told. So yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I don't think Micah would ever assume the role of speaker and like be a member of the consensus and do all of that stuff. I think she would just be there to uh you know, I'm going to shepherd ghosts and I'm going to try and help in kind of a interesting way similar to her father. Like I'm just going to try and help people figure,
cope.
figure their life out, like
Yeah,
figure out what all of this stuff might mean for them.
yeah.
Uh
And at the
so
end of the day, she's a hunter. Like she's not going to get stuck in a tower somewhere.
right, right. I But we do see Micah has some very interesting connections, even well before Final Shape. Um, she's had a couple different touch points with figures that we would know, and by virtue of that, has kind of shaped some of the people we have come to know in our time in Destiny. So we see this in the Protector of Ghosts lore chapter from the lore book Ghost Stories, which launched with Forsaken. And in it, it is a letter from Micah, not to the Traveler this time, but to one Tallulah Fairwind, who was the very first, I believe, Hunter Vanguard.
Yeah.
Uh, and in this letter, Micah has this to say: Hello, old friend. I have a knack for finding hunters. Another of my little pack has found her partner, a human man, and now the two of them are coming back to you by watercraft over the Pacific. Keep an eye on this one, Tallu. He has taken the name Andal Brask, and I believe he will be trouble. Perhaps all of this travel has made me sentimental, for when one of my ghost wards finds their guardian, I am sad, because my pack grows smaller. I miss them when they are gone. Now I'm down to one ghost other than my own. Pup, we call him. The runt of my metallic litter. Pup has yet to speak, but always his little blue eye searches for his guardian. I plan to resupply at the Cosmodrome, and then take Pup north. Those steppes are uncharted territory, except by that one lone wolf, Connor. My correspondence with him is irregular in the outbound direction. I consider myself lucky when he answers every fifth message. Still, you and I both know his intel is good. No one else knows old Russia like he does. Perhaps in the Cosmodrome I'll find a ship capable of breaking atmosphere. Though there is much of this Earth I have yet to see, I have come across more than a few ghosts who believe their guardians are off-world, waiting in the Golden Age ruins of Freehold and Ishtar and beyond. Some of these little lights have decided to brave the null on their own to reach their fated partners. I tell them there's still so much of Earth we've yet to sniff out, and perhaps their guardians have not yet been born. But some of them are convinced. If my next ghost pack wants to make the journey, I am determined to join them. These last few months, we've enjoyed the pleasant absence of Cyril. Now I feel more confident that we lost him in Australis. If he tries to hurt my ghosts, I will rip his throat out. But I hope you're not feeling too cooped up. You're still doing good work, Talu. And as they say, better you than me. Your faithful den mother of ghosts, Micah-10. That's the end of that letter.
Next speaker, not afraid to throw down. I'm down. I'm up. You know me. You pump me up, and I'll fight anything. Uh, yeah, no, it was funny to me when this one is Andal Brask, which we all now know is the successor to Lula,
Yep.
the next Hunter Vanguard, and then the predecessor to Cade 6, being the Hunter Vanguard. So yeah, like it's cute there to see the connections that are happening. Um, but again, we see that pull, right? Like even the ghosts themselves are convinced. It still kind of blew my mind. Like we're still in an age here, at least in our storytelling in this lore entry, where like going to the moon is like it's not a thing. Like
Yeah.
no guardian or ghost has left Earth's orbit, like or left Earth's atmosphere. Like yeah,
Yeah, it is a
it's a foreign concept at this point.
yeah, I mean maybe some have, but it sounds like the finding a ship with the ability to do so is extremely rare at this
Yeah,
point in time.
yeah. I mean, we don't
Uh
have people like Amanda Holiday fixing our sad face
yeah, pulling the engines
out of
sparrows.
sparrows
Yeah.
so neatly and cleanly. Like every bolt, everything was like she disassembled it. She didn't just rip it out; she disassembled it and then put it back together. Thank God. Yeah, no,
uh
it does blow my mind to like. I mean, and that kind of like again thinking timeline wise, like Cade talks about how like when Amanda was 12, that's when we started seeing a true mechanic here, and Amanda Holiday was like the main mechanic for like every like the entire tower. Like she had frames, obviously that were under her command. I'll put that in quotation marks. Um, but yeah, like I mean, to go off world really was just a foreign concept.
mhm.
Um, so
Well,
yeah, like
if you think back to D1, even our Guardian, the first ship we find wasn't capable of breaking atmosphere,
oh
and there
yeah,
was a
we had to
couple
go like
missions
yeah,
to like go get an engine that could be
yep,
retrofitted into it to let us go outside of Earth.
right. And then we accidentally woke up Rasputin and did a bunch of crazy shit.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
But yeah, no, that's you're right. Like you, so I mean, truly, like to leave Earth really is kind of like a foreign thing there. That's neat. That's neat.
Yeah. Now the other thing that may make people wonder, like, who the heck is this mention of Cyril.
That's
Uh,
what I was curious of too. This is one
and
where Micah's ready to like throw down against, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, and Micah is saying like these last few months we've enjoyed the pleasant absence of Cyril. Now I feel more confident that we lost him in they say Australis uh instead of Australia. I'm not sure if that's a typo on the part of Ishtar Collective or if that is literally how it is in game.
It could
Uh
be. I mean, like it's so like some names came forward. Like obviously we have the European dead zone, but it's not like we don't have like France and Italy.
right. Yeah.
Like it could just be like they've dubbed that area the Australias, or and so it could just be like Australia, New Zealand, like essentially that entire Indonesia section all the way up
Yeah.
to where it meets up with the mainland in China.
Yeah, totally possible. But regardless, seems like they shook Cyril off their trail. And she says, if he tries to hurt my ghosts, I'll rip his throat out. So the question that may be on your mind is, who is this Cyril person? Uh,
Clearly, it's Cyril Figgis from Archer, right? No.
not quite.
Sorry, every
Not
time I hear the
quite.
word Cyril, that's my mind. You know how my mind works. Like I make a connection, and then that's it for life. Like every time I hear the word Cyril, all I can hear is Cyril Figgis, and that's it. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
So, Cyril has their own lore card that tells you exactly who they are and why Micah may not be a huge fan of them. In fact, why Micah may have been hunted by them at a time. Um, So this is another chapter within the Ghost Stories lore book titled Ghost Hunter. And it goes like this. The speaker's warnings were clear. Always mind the light. If you feel it fraying, you've strayed too far. There are places even the traveler's light cannot reach. And now here I am, lost in the shadowy vestige known as the reef. Not a single tether of light touches me, but that is what my guardian wanted. His name is Cyril, and Cyril called me Strain. I found him on the far edges of Mercury, in a valley that the Vex transformation had not reached. He seemed resilient, unwavering, old and wise, and I had searched so long for my better half that I didn't hesitate. But if I had considered for one moment more, I might have sensed how tired and burdened and tangled his soul truly was, and I would have left him in peace, and I would not be a murderer of my kin. Cyril told me we came to the reef in search of a Woken. He had heard stories of how this far-flung offshoot of humanity had returned to Sol with unparalleled knowledge. He believed they had answers to a question that he refused to share. I know now, however, that he really came here to spare me. He confessed he could no longer battle or fight in the name of something no one could understand. Though he could not remember his past, he knew deep down that he had already fought his last war. He wouldn't kill me. I was his friend. He didn't kill friends. He wouldn't kill himself either. That was cowardice. Weak. And if the ghost's sole purpose was to raise the dead, to kill in the name of unexplainable forces, well, he could no longer let that happen either. He would end the cycle. He would spare his brothers and sisters in arms. He would let the dead rest. It was years later that I saw Cyril again, clad in wretched-looking armor, dragging a chain of dead ghosts in the name of peace. Still searching for someone who could answer the one question that had haunted him since his rebirth. So if you are a ghost that has not yet found your chosen, let this be a warning. Cyril, the ghost hunter, will end your search for you. And if you are someone that perchance has the answer he seeks, please do not keep your secrets from him. Your life depends on it. And that's the end of that lore card.
Jesus, we're just going dark today. That's what's happening.
Welcome to Destiny.
Sadness and darkness. That is our episode today.
Welcome to Destiny.
Seriously, like holy shit, dude. Okay, so we got a guy who is pissed that he's rezzed and thinks that it's his purpose to, oh my god, he's like a mini witness, uh, to end other ghosts because they don't answer the question of why was I rezzed? Why am I fighting? What is my purpose here?
Yeah, kinda.
Oh my god.
And the scary part is that is the only lore entry we have other than Micah's letter that tells us anything about Cyril. So for all we know, he's still out there
Yeah,
somewhere.
he's still out there killing ghosts, thinking he's doing the right thing. I mean, I guess that that does kind of bring up a little bit of a downside of being a guardian. Like, we still truly don't. I mean, we have an idea now. Like, I truly believe that the ghosts were created in an effort to create some type of being that could stop the witness. That to me is the true, I don't want to say purpose, but I don't have a better word, so I'm going to use that word. The true purpose of a guardian. Like we were rezzed in an effort to become balanced enough between light and dark to be able to stop the witness from shutting off the universe. Now that we've reached that goal, it's questionable about what the hell is going to happen, but I mean, now we can do anything. Now we can take to the stars again, like travel out, like Exodus out.
Yeah.
Like I'm down for that. But yeah, like I mean, you're talking thousands of years that question was asked over and over and over again. Why am I res? Why am I here? What is the guardian's purpose? And the only answer is like from the speaker of like, oh, to to protect the light. And it's like, okay, cool. Then what? Like it feels like a open ended question of like, why am I here?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's I would say still unanswered.
Sure.
Like there's some people like we saw in the campaign that Cade was like the ghost's job was to form an army for a war.
Yeah.
Uh and you
And
have others that, the ghosts themselves are like, we're just this is just what we're meant to do, so we do it.
yeah,
Uh and even in light of being inside the traveler, we still don't have a good understanding of what its desires are. I think we're starting to get there,
sure.
but we don't truly know what its intentions are, what
I
its
think
end
that
goal
I
is.
think that vision that it gave Cade, where it actually spoke directly, because again, in the cutscene that happens during the campaign, it's right after you find Lazaku and you go into the lost sector, and Cade like communes with. He's like, wait, do you hear it? And he's shown a bunch of scenes, and then he's like being talked to by Sundance. I'm still under the influence of that was not actual Sundance. That
Yeah.
was the because even Sundance says this is what you wanted me to appear as. I truly
Yep.
believe that being the traveler literally talking to Cade in that instance and then getting interrupted in what it was trying to tell Cade. And for Cade to not truly be able to understand what it was trying to tell and then misinterpreting it at the end anyway, thanks to the witness, like it's yeah.
Yeah. But so we know from these entries, we know who Cyril is and why a ghost hunter would probably want to go after Micah, and Micah would not stand for them.
Yeah.
um,
Especially when you got a whole pack of ghosts following you, like, hey, that's fish in a barrel.
yeah. We also know that Micah, from her letter, is searching for Deepstone Crypt, and at this point is started searching on Earth, started in Siberia and other like cold climates, and has come to this decision that it's not here, it's out there somewhere. And so now her goal is find a ship. And while she is in the process of trying to find that ship, she mentions a guardian by the name of Connor. Uh, as someone that she's going to touch base with and try and because like they know the cosmodrome and maybe they can help me find this ship. Uh, in her meeting with Connor, she has a little bit of this like side quest adventure, which is the formation of the group known as the Coyotes or the Six Coyotes. And I the it is this reinforcement of Micah being a force for unconditional support. I and so we can see from a couple of different entries here, kind of the forming of the Six Coyotes and the part Micah kind of had to play. And so we're going to touch on those real quick. The first one is the lore card for Shinobu's Vow, the exotic gloves, hunter gloves. And in this one, these are all written from the perspective of Shinobu. And the first one is brief, and it goes like this: I don't know how to write this. I died. Well, Shinobu died. This is hard, but I, she must have kept this journal for a reason. So here goes. One of the hunters, Nadia, told me most guardians were dead for centuries before ghosts find them. When all trace of their first lives are gone, Nadia is a name she chose for herself. Shinobu isn't your name anymore, Nadia had said to me. It could be, though, I said. And then Nadia said, Shinobu and I were going to skip town. She told me that I, Shinobu, had realized there was no stopping the fallen, and that the village, Coyote, was doomed. She wanted to leave this place, Nadia said. She didn't want to die here. Well, so much for that. This is a excerpt from the diary of Himura Shinobu of the Six Coyotes. So that's kind of the first little bit there. And what we can construe from this based on this little bit and then the flavor text for Shinobu's vow. The town of Coyote was doomed. Like fallen raiders were constantly a threat, and a guardian, Nadia, and a now sounds like died and was very shortly thereafter resurrected Shinobu, uh, were planning to leave. Like, okay, this town's done for. We got to leave.
Yeah.
And the flavor text for it is a excerpt from the Tale of the Six Coyotes, and it says, "No supplies, armor in tatters, but the refugees had asked her for help, and she had given her word." Uh, the flavor text from the sixth Coyote chest piece, hunter chest piece, which is the chest piece that uh, Micah is wearing in final shape. Like her character model has the six coyote chess piece on. I says a statement from Micah who is saying, "You want to use your old name? That's fine by me. Just don't tell anyone." That's specifically Micah to Shinobu. I
I guess that's the
and
question. I I think I made the connection there. Is Nadia Shinobu?
no. So what it sounds like happened is Nadia was a guardian who had a non-guardian friend named Shinobu. Shinobu and Nadia were going to leave the town of Coyote because they couldn't they were leaving it because there was no way to defend it.
Sure. Like that was
Uh
like the end of the town type thing.
yeah,
Like if they
in
stayed, everyone's dead.
them trying to leave, Shinobu died and was like almost immediately resurrected by a ghost.
Oh my god.
So it was
Dude, that would be a confusing time for anyone.
right.
Like, do you refer to them as Shinobu? Like,
Well, and that's what Nadia is kind of saying. Like your name isn't Shinobu. Like that's not you anymore. And this freshly resurrected guardian is like, yeah, but it could be. Like
yeah,
I have their diary.
sure.
I know something about them. Uh, and Micah, and we'll see this in another area. Micah's not as stiff on the like guardian shouldn't know their past
I mean, with
rule.
how much she keeps getting pulled, like,
Right.
she can't be that stiff. Like that's now you're a hypocrite, Micah.
Yeah. So to her, it's very much a like, you know, that's fine. You want to know more about yourself, I understand, but you should probably keep it under wraps because not everyone will.
Because
Uh,
eventually, some guy named Zavala is going to be really pissed at you.
yeah. Um, and essentially, the tale of the six coyotes is these six hunters: Shinobu, Nadia, Micah, Connor. I believe Theron is another one. But Theron Vey, yeah, Theron Vey, and then Lee Four is an EXO.
How the hell
Uh,
do you keep all these names in your head, Myth?
notes. I keep
There's
notes.
there's no way I would have remembered all those names.
So you have these six hunters that became the six coyotes because they all kind of met each other and grouped up in the town of Coyote and eventually defended it. Like they are the reason the town Coyote persisted was because
Sure.
they came together and defended it against the fallen. And a lot of the coyotes see Micah as, I don't know if a leader is the right term, but the driving force between their group.
Sure.
Uh,
Like a something to rally behind.
yeah, and even Micah introduces herself as I'm Micah-10 of the Six Coyotes. When you meet them the first time in like the projection of them in
Yep.
the Pale Heart.
Yep.
So the Six Coyotes are still a force, are still a like fire team. Uh, and they all formed as six hunters at the town of Coyote, which is where their name came from. But the, I think, final reading of this episode, and a good point to kick off into next episode, is going to be from a new gun that dropped in the final shape. This is the lore card from the sniper rifle called the Embraced Identity. And the lore card on it goes like this. A cutting laser bathes frost-caked steel in sparks of molten metal. The light burns orange, tracing an elliptical path until the section of bulkhead can be pushed away. It lands on the floor of the chamber with a resounding clang, dislodging icicles from the ceiling in a heavy indoor snowfall. Micah-10 slides through the still glowing opening, surveying the ice-encrusted facility beyond the breach. What she finds is a labyrinth of catwalks, debris-blocked corridors, and still functioning machinery dating back to the ages before the collapse. An hour into the guts of the European facility, and Micah's ghost springs up over her shoulder in a crackle of light. The power conduit converge in a room just past here, she says, shining a light on a nearby door that glitters with hoarfrost. Thank you, Mihailova. Micah gently knocks her helmet against her ghost. With a steady hand, she scrapes away the frost from the door, revealing a Braytech logo stenciled on the surface. She and Mihailova share a look of trepidation. Then, with tremendous strength, Micah wrenches the frozen door open and steps into the data center. It takes hours to scan the racks for operational data and even longer to sort out corrupted files from salvageable ones. But it isn't salvage Micah is looking for. An icy sheen has collected on both Micah and Mihailova in the time they've spent scanning the archive, processing thousands of files, searching for a single one without the benefit of a functioning index. A needle in a haystack. Until the soft gasp that escapes Micah tells her ghost the search is over. Micah immediately pulls a cable from the back of her neck, spooling it out to interface with the archive. She loads the file she's been searching for, the one she's hoped for. The answer. Her answer. File titled Exomind Project. Age 17. Gender female. Height 167 centimeters. Weight 54 kilograms. Class A6. Resident. Micah rests her hand on the flickering screen displaying the file. A partial record of a lifetime. Fragments of the past, pieces of her, pieces of identity, of self, answers to the dreams that have haunted her since Mihailova first woke her up. Permission be damned. It's nice to meet you, she whispers, beginning the download. Micah Abram. And that's the end of the lore card.
Holy shit. I mean, she did way more than what Anna did.
Yeah.
Anna just kind of like pieced it together and like went through and like she straight up downloaded memories. Like Shit.
She downloaded her Exomind like backup.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay.
So
Okay. It is cute that she named her ghost the
the
same as her
same as the
penguin.
penguin.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
it's a little poetic justice. The penguin she went out into the snow to find to the Exo facility with, and the very last letter was the penguin named Mihalova,
Mihalova. Yep.
and that's the ghost that woke her up.
Oh my god. Oh my oh my god, Myth.
So Micah-10 knows, and I guess we don't know how much of the files were uncorrupted, but
Sure.
presumably knows a very large chunk, if not all, of her past.
History.
Yeah.
All of like the golden age, the I mean like that's a lot of stuff. I say all of the golden age, like again, if the collapse was happening towards the end of Micah's life, if they were talking like you got 50 years and collapse happens, like yeah, the end of the golden age, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I
still, well, you couldn't even say that too, because like if we're talking Micah, 1 through 9 is in there. I mean, that could very well be during the collapse.
That's true. Yeah, we don't know what Micah, after leaving into the snowstorm that night, we don't know what
Yeah.
happened. We do know, I say we don't know what happened. We know a little bit. There is a dialogue line from Micah that we'll read outright next episode where they describe Cade as an exo being a mentor to Micah, uh, as a like, you know, almost another father figure, or at the very least, like the cool uncle that you hung out with, kind of thing. Uh,
I could see Kate as the cool uncle.
so there was definitely a relationship there beyond nearly being shot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
and I'm assuming that relationship started after Micah became an EXO.
I mean, that would make
Maybe
sense.
not,
Like
but
once they're an EXO, like you're in the EXO program, like you're not exactly going to be, sectioned off from other EXOs going, hey, that thing over there, that thing doesn't exist, even though you are
yeah,
that thing now.
yeah. And plus, as an EXO, especially as a younger, age 17 is where we get her age from when she became an EXO in this file. Like, you're not going to be able to go socialize with the other humans on Europa because everyone thought exos were like scary.
Yeah.
These creepy metal people, like, stay away from them, kind of thing.
Or just straight up secretive. Like we don't know
Also,
how
yeah,
much, like we don't truly know how much of the EXO program was shared with the rest of humanity.
right.
Like for all we know, like it was, hey, exos were created, collapse happened. Like, okay, well, neat. We got this whole facility that's just pumping out humans.
Well, we do know that like Maya Sundaresh had Cade as a bodyguard
Oh
for
yeah, that's right.
at
That's
least
right.
some time at Ishtar. So uh, not maybe not 100% like covert under wraps
Sure.
completely, but definitely no one knew what was going on inside the EXO facilities for sure.
Yep.
But
Okay. Well,
so yeah.
neat. Yeah. Obviously, next episode we're gonna do some. We're gonna cover the traveler collectibles that are
Mm-hmm.
um, throughout. God, I'd already forgotten. Pale Heart. The whole place we've been for the last 2 weeks that I literally cannot stop going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every one of those collectibles has a really cool line from Micah and tons of stuff to dive into for theory crafting, like throughout the history of the Traveler and the history of the Golden Age and stuff like that, and the history of Destiny. So, yeah, we're really excited to continue on with that. And like again, when the first cutscene showed that like Mara was like, "I've brought these people through the gate." This is like before the raid even went live. Well, I guess that scene still plays no matter what. But like when you kind of finish the main part of the main campaign before the exes. God, that's a hard word, Myth. The actual final mission, exegism.
Yeah.
That's a hard word. She's like Mike. She's like, I brought Keitel and the Cabal forces. I brought Mithrax and the Elixni, and I brought Micah-10. As soon as like Micah-10 showed up on the screen, I was like, Myth, we know that, we know who that is, and I was like so excited. And then like when you get into the post campaign stuff, and it's all just Micah helping go, like you and Micah finding these lost ghosts, and there's tons of dialogue there throughout all of that stuff. It was really fun to play alongside that stuff. So yeah, we're excited to dive into it next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So this episode is all like, who is Micah? What is their history? Why should I trust or care what they're saying? And next episode is going to be all like, all right, now that we know that, this is the part they play during the campaign and the post campaign stuff, and let's just talk shop because there's a lot to dig through there.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
looking forward to that one for sure. But hopefully you found this one interesting if you weren't familiar with who Micah was up till now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do some shout outs. We have a ton of backlog of shout outs. Like
We do.
that's
We
what happens when
absolutely
we
do.
take a nice little break. Like the break was needed, and we were very appreciative of it. And it sounds like a few of you guys out there like understood. Like, yeah, this is super cool that you're able to do something like that. Like to just take a break and then just come back full force.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that does leave a lot of people like, hey, we miss you. Like, hey, we're back.
Yeah. So yeah, appreciate you guys giving us some time, and we're happy to like dive into all this fun juicy info. But yeah, so looking at shout outs for us this time. Again, we have a large list. We're only going to get through some of that list for this episode. So we will continue to work through that backlog until we're caught up. But the first comes to us from Detail Orientated Defender, which is from Twitter. And they pointed out the lore card on the Unforeseen Consequences ship. Now, they technically sent this prior to Final Shape coming out. And on this ship, they point out the lore card, which is talking about Crow actually making the wish for Cade to be back. Uh, and they had already kind of keyed off, having seen the trailer for Final Shape, like, careful what you wish for, Crow.
Yeah,
And I love that not only was the reason for Cade's appearance in Final Shape, but it was very directly addressed, and like that was super cool.
absolutely. It's neat to see when like lore cards on or lore entries on ships or sparrows or guns or whatever, you see like the consequences of those play out in front of you. And it's like if you had read the ship before going into Final Shape, you would kind of it almost like adds a little bit more to it, like it there's a little bit more meaning there when you finally discover like, oh, he wished him into existence. That explains a lot now.
Yep, yep. I
But good
say
eye.
that, yeah, absolutely, and appreciate you keying us, sending it our way as well, because like that period right before Final Shape was a whole lot of trying to figure out like, okay, what puzzle pieces do we have? Do things fit together? Just trying to like theory craft what we're gonna see,
Yeah.
and so stuff like that is really cool. I say another one coming to us from Twitter, post Final Shape in this case. First one coming to us from Scorpio, who says, I enjoyed the campaign very much. Lots of little surprises, and thanks to you, I was able to explain a lot of things to my friends during the campaign that they didn't even know why they had happened. I felt a little bit like a lore daddy. So
Feels
that's
good,
that's
doesn't it?
cool. Yeah,
Feels good, doesn't it? When you're big brain in the room and everyone's just like, "Oh shit." Feels pretty good.
it does. And knowing that you are helping someone get more out of the experience by providing them with some of those extra story bits, like that's just feels good. It's a
It
really
it
cool
it,
moment.
it enriches the experience even more. So like to have
Absolutely.
somebody kind of like at your side, like you go on the strike and somebody's like, well, why the hell does Zavala care about Ahamkara shit? And then you're like, oh, well, actually, da 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 da. Like Yeah, to be
Yep.
able to just kind of like point little things out and just be like, oh, well, this is why he's saying this here, or like why was he on his homestead? Like, what was the whole point of that? And it's like, oh, well, back in this, we learned that he had a son and he had a wife and they died, and he thought about killing himself and killing his ghost just to go be with them, and decided, oh wait, no, that's probably not the right answer. And yeah, no, it's a feels good. It feels good. I like
It
it.
is. It is. I will say I feel like they did a exceptional job of keeping as much of the like immediately story relevant info in the story that was told, though. Like they did a
Sure.
very good job with it this time around.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely, there's little tidbits that were on the wings that if you knew about from lore cards or lore books or whatnot, you'd be like, oh, that I know, that little bit of more info makes this all that much more cool. But
Freaking Lazaku and her ghost. Like, I
yeah.
until Myth, even like, I didn't even realize that until Myth pointed it out in our last episode. I was like, holy shit, dude, we really did know about this like 2 years ago, that there's like dissension amongst the ranks in Savathun's Lucent Hide brew. So yeah, like that's
Mm-hmm.
to see that play out in game. It's like, oh shit, this is happening.
Yeah. So love that. But yeah, glad that we could make the experience better for you, and you in turn can make it better for your friends.
Pay it forward.
Uh,
Kindly pay it
absolutely.
forward.
So next shout out, also from Twitter, comes to us from Mr. Nerd, who says, "Love y'all's podcast. Can't wait to hear both of your 2 cents on the campaign and the sudden appearance of Micah-10." Well,
Spoiler alert, we're doing it. You
yeah,
guys
and
keep beating
say,
us to the punch, man. Like, yeah.
yeah, I like Zara said, when we first saw Micah show up in the like post campaign stuff, and when Mara was trying, I found these people to come help. We were so happy to see Micah as a part of that, and to see uh how big of a like contribution Micah is in the
Yeah.
kind of ending of the campaign and post campaign story is super cool.
She's not just like a little like side thing, like, hey, this is
Yeah.
over here in the corner, like mess with it if you want to, don't mess with it if you don't, it doesn't matter. Like, she's front and center post campaign. Like, she is the every post campaign mission is essentially you doing something for her.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it
really,
was
really cool.
this was the first time that Myth and I actually got to play the entire campaign together, um, which was just an amazing experience. To like, for an event to happen and for the two of us to just start keying off, just like, oh well, da 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 da, blah 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 blah. Like, we were. It was genuinely kind of hard to stay focused on what we were doing, because like something would happen and one of us would be like, well, blah 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 blah, and we're like, yeah, well, blah 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 blah, and they're like, oh yeah, well, what about blah 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 blah, and yeah. So yeah, it was, again, when Micah showed up on screen, I think Myth and I both kind of like just like, oh my god, it's happening.
Yeah, it was really cool. I'm glad that they brought Micah into it, and I hope that I we see even more with
Yeah,
that character as it goes on.
absolutely.
Um, but next one here is coming to us from Justin Bacon, who says, "Did the traveler leave those before us because they used its gifts only to benefit themselves, whereas us guardians did first for all of humanity, but now for all species as a whole? Does selfishness and sacrifice equal sanctuary to our spherical friend?" That's a tongue twister. Uh, but
So, a couple things here that I think need to be brought forefront. Number one, the species that the traveler left never had ghosts.
true.
We were the first to have ghosts, and like, again, we're still not fully sure on how that happened. We got like little glimpses of it happening, like throughout the eyes of the travel through the eyes of the traveler, throughout the campaign. But we never truly understood why the ghost appeared. And the only explanation we really have is when, like earlier we said, like Kate said, um, we were recruited for a war. And I don't know that the other species were ever truly recruited, but I do like the idea that, like, there were other speakers amongst the other species, and that those other speakers misinterpreted the traveler just as much as I think we did, and the message that traveler was trying to send. And so when the traveler did finally get a point to where it was like, okay, I can send out ghosts. These ghosts are going to help um, deliver my message, or interpret my message, I guess. But then to like for whatever event happened that like stopped the communication between the ghost and the traveler, like they can still feel each other, but again, I don't know that there's any communication going on there. Yeah, maybe that was part of the sanctuary idea.
Yeah. And it is an interesting idea of like, did the traveler leave other species because they misused its gifts, or only use them for, like you said, for like selfish reasons?
Sure.
Uh, It's hard to judge because we only have kind of secondhand info. I don't know that I necessarily got the impression from like the Elixni that they use the light for selfishness, but we also don't really get a really good understanding of like what was Elixni culture like, what was their power
Well,
structure, what was the hierarchy.
so let's take a point from the final shape cutscene that the statue shows Zavala. They talk about the traveler left us, and then they reply with "we ran from it."
Yeah,
So were the witnesses original people misusing its power, going around creating garden worlds, creating whole existences just to be blipped out, and then the witnesses people not understanding it, and the travel might have left them.
yeah. Well, we know for sure the traveler left them at some point.
Sure, sure,
Um,
yep. At some point in
but
time, the traveler was like, "Okay, this is bad.
yeah,
Nope, not dealing with that crap." But it was
but yeah,
after they had found the veil, like
right, right,
the traveler left and then had been running the entire time. But I think the traveler left, and because again in that cutscene, that when the traveler raises, it's whole. There's not like that big old section that's missing out of the bottom of it that it is
right.
in our universe. So obviously, like by the time it gets to our universe, like it is battle scarred. Like it's had a few run-ins, so it's definitely been running. But we don't know again that the when the veiled statue replies back like no lies, we ran from it. Like I think it's a two-part thing. I think they were tired of living that eternity, those eons without purpose, with it just having infinite life and infinite growth, and not knowing what to do with that. But also when they turned to the darkness and was like, "Oh, now we'll give you purpose." At that point in time, now it becomes the traveler going, "Oh shit, I got a GTFO," and leaving. So yeah, it may be a two-part thing. It may be a misinterpretation of the traveler's ideas, and it may be the misuse of its own gifts that it's giving.
Yeah, and as we'll learn a little bit more about the traveler, for lack of a better term, the traveler's thought process, uh, as we dig into the next episode and like some of the visions that Micah interprets. That might help us theorize a little more on that. But but yeah, I think at this point there it's kind of like there's a bunch of really good theories about what might be the reason, but we're just never really gonna know. Like
Yeah.
until Bungie gives us the traveler just like point blank being like, here's why I've done all the things I did. We're just never gonna be able to
Yeah.
say.
No.
But it's fun to think about. It's fun to
Sure.
theorize. And I appreciate you sending your theory to us.
We love theories.
Uh, yeah. So another one here. We'll probably do this and then one more. Um, next one, also from Twitter. In this case, comes to us from Indie Scout, who says, "Sounds like you lads will have a lot to unpack in your episodes on the final shape. You're not wrong. One question I have is why do we have to kill the dissenters in the witness to kill it? Wouldn't a rebellion inside it help us kill it? Looking forward to the answers."
This is an interesting question, and I even kind of had like in the moment, like the first thing that I popped up with like and Myth can attest to this. Like a sword appears, and I'm the sword guy. Like I love using a sword in my heavy slot. So this sword appears as a relic for us to use, and I'm like, I lost my mind. I was like, you tell me to you point me in a direction, I will swing and swipe and kill. But I never really thought about it until this question here was posed to us, and I genuinely don't know. I mean, on the one hand, maybe it truly is like they don't know, like now that they are one consciousness, they cannot separate anymore. Like it is physically impossible for them to separate, and so the only way out would be a death.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things that we can use to uh theory craft an answer here. So the idea of like, all right, if there are souls, for lack of a better term, within the witness that don't agree with it, then why don't they just take over? And then the witness isn't a bad guy anymore. I I think based on what we learned from the statues, from the exiled statues, the people that were already cut out
Throughout the campaign.
and imprisoned, yeah, throughout the campaign, one of them says like, "Our voices are many, but our voices are weak."
Yes.
I
We're
think it
not
is
strong, we're
the
not strong. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and they repeat that over and over again, like we're not strong enough. And I think the idea is there are these dissenters, there are these beings within the witness that don't agree with what it's doing, but they are perhaps not the majority, or it has exerted like the main will that drives it has
Yeah.
exerted so much control over everything else that
That's
they can't take control of the
That's
body.
that's what I'm thinking more and more of, especially when I start thinking of like the powers that the witness have granted people, like the power to take is the power to exert your will so much
Yeah.
over an entity
Yep.
that it has no other choice than to follow you. I'm starting to think, Myth, you might have nail head hit thing. Yes, that.
So, what in if that's the case, if the dissenters are, for lack of a better term, imprisoned, they have no way to bulk against the main willpower of the witness, but they're still part of it. They
Sure.
know that like we still make up parts of this mind and body, and we're willing to give ourselves, to give our lives, or give ourselves in this form to stop this thing, to weaken this thing enough that you can put an end to it. And I see that as what's happening there. They are in a way sacrificing themselves for us to deal an injury to the witness, because even if they don't agree with the main willpower of the witness, they're still a part of its body.
Yeah.
And us cutting them out is the same as us will do as much damage as us cutting any of the other ones out.
Sure. It's like cutting out a brain tumor. Except in this case, the brain tumor is talking to us and telling us to do it.
Sure.
That's the way I see. I mean, it again. It's that idea of like whittling out like the individuals to try to get to the bigger whole, and that's just
Yeah.
it. As shitty as it is to have to like kill another being, that's like I know that I am part of a bigger being that's doing bad, and I want to be free. I want to get out, but I just can't. Again, the idea of that will, the will, the main will of whatever the main, and again, the thing that the witness says in the final mission when you kill him, and he's like or he's like I don't
Yeah.
understand. There's a rapid shift right before he bursts into a million pieces, that it seems like that will has now, like we've cut so many out that will can now no longer even hold that being together, and that will has now separated itself into a singular I, which again, I'm starting to think more and more and more that the forming of the witness might have truly been a singular entity amongst the many, and then that idea just grew and grew and grew and grew, and now that one entity was like, okay, now we are the witness, full stop. And that will was just so strong that as soon as all that mental capacity was combined into a single entity, it just took over, and then
Yeah.
all those other
And
ones did grow kind of silent.
I mean, we know, like you said, the witness is the one that presumably taught Oryx how to take. Take is an exertation of willpower. The people, the precursors that became the witness, had access to the veil for as long as they wanted,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Eons.
be beyond the realm of possibility if a single person or like the leaders of a particular cult or sect of religion understood the veil. And I mean, maybe the creation of the witness was like the first use of the ability to take, but
Sure.
rather than take and then give it a body, it was take and put into your body or something like that.
Sure. Absolutely.
But yeah, so lots of fun things to theorize. But I do think that idea is why we're attacking the dissenters rather than like working.
Like
I mean, we
freeing
are
them,
kind
like
of
trying to
working with
free them.
them, but
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so I think that's where we're going to end our shout outs for this episode. We got plenty more to continue with later episodes. But if you like what you heard here and you want to give us some kind of support, leaving a review on your platform of choice is the easiest way you can do so. Or tell a friend that you think might also be interested. Send them our way. If you feel strongly enough, you want to leave a text review. We love reading those. Or if you want to reach out, you can reach us at Twitter, at Myths and Stories, on YouTube, youtube.com/at Myths and Stories, or send us an old fashioned email, mythsandstories@gmail.com. And you may see yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. I'm gonna. I guess. I hate to thank HR because sometimes I hate HR, but I'm gonna thank HR. Thanks for not asking questions when Cade went out as a group of two and came back as a singular. You know, sometimes you just accept what's in front of you. Sometimes it's important to ask questions. Sometimes the person that you ask questions to has bullets, and you don't want to know the answers because bullets hurt more than words. I don't know, they both hurt pretty equally. I'm going to say bullets hurt more than words. That's what's going to be the thing. Yep.
Yes, that's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway. Bullets hurt more than words. And maybe, you know, if your buddy decides like, "Hey, I found a kid, let's kill it." Maybe don't listen to that buddy anymore. Yeah, anything else, Myth?
That's it.
Alrighty. Well, then, from all of us lore daddies to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.